to different type of method, we have qualitative, quantitative, mixed method. The choice of this method depend on what type of research question we have. We might have different type of research question, and according to the need of the research question, according to the topic area we are selecting, the research method depend upon that. It might be qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method. Even in social sciences, I wanted to connect you to social sciences. In social sciences, if you have to use qualitative, then the question comes like how, why those phenomena are occurring, why those things are occurring, how those things are occurring. Such questions are asked, and your purpose is to explore perception, what type of opinion people have about those, and how people experience those conditions. So they share perception, opinion, and experiences in the case of qualitative research method. However, in quantitative, you have certain hypothesis you wanted to test. There is some certain relationship you want to check, or there might be a relationship between dependent and independent variable, so you might want to test. This quantitative, it might be applied on social sciences, or it might be related to any other natural sciences, forestry, wildlife, or any other medical or engineering. Quantitative can be used because even qualitative is used first, but you wanted to see the socio-economic aspect in qualitative. However, in quantitative can be used in social sciences as well as other natural sciences. And your main aim is to generalize finding to a large population. You wanted to generalize something by using quantitative. However, mixed method, it is the mixed approach of both qualitative and quantitative. You try to explore from multiple perspectives. You wanted to see the quantitative aspect, and you wanted to observe the quantitative and observe as well as the qualitative aspect or people perception, how and why those things are occurring, why that test is significant, why that those things are happening. So you wanted to explore more on those, so you combine qualitative insight with statistical data, and you make your result more comprehensive in the case of mixed method. And in terms of qualitative, usually how you design your research question or how you design your objective in qualitative, you usually write you want to exploring something. Your objective will be to explore something. Your objective will be to understand something. You wanted to develop something. So you work on participant setting. You work according to how participant want to share their ideas. And usually in science, inductive and deductive process. So in qualitative, you try to use the inductive process. And your aim is not to generalize, but you wanted to study the specific component. You move to the observation. You directly go in the field, you see the observation, you wanted some specific component in qualitative, so you use inductive approach. And your report is more flexible, not like pure hard and fast statistic, not like test significance hypothesis. It might be descriptive, inferential. You don't go with that. You write your report on your own. It might be quotations, it might be narrative, or you might also sometime bring some content analysis out of those. However, in quantitative, your aim is to test something, or you wanted to examine something, you wanted to, replicate something or validate something, you use quantitative approach. And your quantitative reporting is fixed. You do your descriptive, inferential, you write your result, you write your discussion. It's fixed approach. And your aim is the deductive approach, because you go from theory to, you use the theory and you test the theory, and you wanted to generalize something out of those. So your aim is to test a theory in the case of quantitative. However, in qualitative, your aim is to develop some theory. So developing comes in qualitative. However, testing comes in quantitative. And mixed mean you wanted to integrate both. It might be qualitative first, quantitative second, or quantitative first, qualitative second, or you wanted to do all of them together. So in that approach, your mixed method can be stepwise, or it might be convergent, which can be done together. Yeah, in terms of example of quantitative, you all know experimental design in natural sciences, biological sciences, or in social sciences, you can use experimental design for quantitative. If you are doing social sciences or if you are doing social study, you can do survey, non-experimental design as well. Or you can do questionnaire, you can fill questionnaire, you can take responses from people, but there will be multiple choice answers and people have fixed answer to give on quantitative. However, qualitative, it might be narrative approach, phenomenological approach, it might be grounded theory approach, ethnographic approach, or case study approach. There are different type of qualitative you can use. And in mixed method, you combine both. Conversion mean you apply qualitative and quantitative. You collect the data together and you merge and integrate the data together and synthesize some finding from the merging of both. The conversion mean you do it together, integrate together, and find something out of those integration. So that is convergent. Explanatory mean you do quantitative first, you do survey, you find your answer, you test your hypothesis. Now you wanted to see why that hypothesis is happening, why that phenomena is occurring, why that test is showing that result. You wanted to do more interviews, you wanted to get in-depth answer of that. You use explanatory. However, in the case of exploratory, first you do qualitative, you do interviews, you do focus group discussion, you might do photo elicitation method, you can do observation, you find out something from there, and with the help of those findings, with the help of those themes, with the help of those content, you try to develop a questionnaire. And you use those, findings to develop a questionnaire, and you try to test using a quantitative method. That is a exploratory. In exploratory, qualitative comes first. However, in explanatory sequential, quantitative comes first. So that is the stepwise sequential process. However, in the concept of transformative, embedded, multi-phase, sometimes one research method you give priority to survey, and just you embed a qualitative in that, or you give more priority to quantitative and you just embed a quantitative section to that. So that is an embedded type of study, especially 4 type of mixed method you will apply. And I will not go more on those, how quantitative mix and qualitative they differs. We all know quantitative is theory based, is predetermined. You have the theory, everything is predetermined, now you wanted to test it. So predetermined. However, qualitative might bring some emerging trend. It might not, something new can be emerged, something new can be brought because you are taking a perception of people, you are observing phenomena directly, so something might emerge. However, in the case of mixed method, you use the both approach. You immerse something and test that, or you test something and you wanted to find why that is happening. So that is mixed method. And mixed method is also important because sometimes qualitative doesn't answer everything. Quantitative also doesn't give everything. So you might need to answer why that quantitative is happening. What is the reason behind that? You have to use mixed method. And you sometimes you get a qualitative answer. You might need to apply to more people. You might need to generalize that qualitative finding. So in that case also you can apply mixed method. So qual first or quant first, it depends upon what type of question you are trying to answer. So mixed method also depend. And in the case of qualitative, your questionnaire or your response are semi-structure or open-ended type of question you ask. However, in quantitative, closed-ended, already there are choices. It is just good, or they can only choose those options. In mixed method, it is a combination of both. So many researchers, they try to follow mixed method in social sciences. Even in biological sciences, in health sciences, nursing, they use mixed method a lot. Because whatever quantitative findings comes from a patient or a biological case, what is the reason behind that? They wanted to seek those reasons. Well, they wanted to see why that problem is occurring. For example, forest management is occurring or wildlife conservation is occurring. Why, how that wildlife conservation is possible? You can't just test that wildlife. Yeah, tiger number are increased. Those animals are increased, but you wanted to test behind why those number are increasing. How people are conserving. In that case, quantitative itself is not possible. You have to use mixed method. Even in forestry also, why people are motivated to conserve forest? Forest conservation is there. You measure the tree. You measure the forest structure, everything. But why people are interested in forest conservation? In that case, you might need to apply qualitative to identify why those things are happening. So that will give you more in-depth answer, whether people are happy with those conservation or whether those people are happy with those influences. So in biological sciences also, natural sciences also, many researchers use mixed method approach. In that case, you need to understand what is qualitative. Even you need to understand what is mixed method. Quantitative itself is never sufficient in those cases. However, it depends upon your research question. So mixed method is one of the important approach in most of the sciences. Either you need to integrate natural science, social science, or other case. And this is about philosophy. I don't want to deal more on the philosophy, ontology, all those things. You all know post-positivism, more focus on quantitative focus on more post-positivism, while however qualitative focus on constructivist or transformative approach, while mixed method focus on pragmatic approach. I don't want to teach you those philosophy over here or ontologies or what is the science behind that. I will only share you what is the importance of those, okay? Yes, these are the worldview. Post-positivism is most often seen in quantitative. You just want to test. Positivism is pure science. Okay, science says if that is happening, that will happen every time. However, post-positivism means you try to explore some social aspect behind those as well. So post-positivism is more focused on quantitative. Constructivism is qualitative is answered by constructivism. However, a mixed method we see from pragmatism. I don't want to depth more on that today. Now, I want to, now after the types of method, I wanted to go to choice of sampling now. How to identify sample. This is the most important thing many student and researcher miss to answer. They directly go to the field without having what type of sampling method to use, what sample to use. Without determining those, if you go in the field, later on, you might bring some result, but that wouldn't be convincible for audiences. Your research, your academic audience, or your, a managerial audience, or practical audience, or they might be related to policy. All those audience will not be satisfied if your sampling is not good. So this is the most important approach of any research method. If you don't identify your sampling method, sample size, and power, it will be difficult for you to convince your audience. So sampling is important. So how and what determines the choice of sampling? Number one, your research question. Always, what type of research question you have? Quantitative type, you wanted to test, validate, or replicate. Or you want to explore, develop, or find out something. Or you wanted to combine both exploring as well as testing. So it depends upon what type of research question you have, number one. Number second, of course, budget is always the limitation for everyone. Your timeline is the limitation. Your team is the limitation. What type of team you have in your research project? How much time you have? If you are doing for a dissertation or thesis, you might have certain time. You can't study forever. You have certain limit. You have to finish within the time. Also, there is a budget. You don't have unlimited budget to do and everything you wanted to do. So your budget, timeline, and team also affect a lot. However, what your research question wanted to ask, that shouldn't be compromised. Number third, access to your population. Yes, you wanted to identify something out, but you are unable to explore those population. You cannot reach those people. Those people are irresponsive to you. In that case, it depends upon whether you access to your population or not, whether those population are accessible or not. It depends upon that as well. For example, if you wanted to go and explore your result in certain other countries, international scenario, you have to check whether those people will be able to respond to your answer or not. Access to your population is always important. And how you ask question to those people also, that might be important. So accessibility depend upon whether you could reach properly or not, or the tool you have could be easily applied to their population or not. So access to your population. Other studies and literature, how other studies and literature are done, what your literature is telling, what other studies are telling, what your professor is telling, that always matters because they are the experts on this topic. Other than that, your research framework, what type of research framework you have, it depends upon what type of qualitative, quantitative mix, or in qualitative, quantitative mix also, what type of approach you are planning, it depends upon that. And we can't explore everything. We can't study everything. We can't observe every people. So we need to go to sampling. So sampling is important because due to feasibility, and it is difficult to study everything in totality. So we have to do sampling. Because if you wanted to study everything, every people, all the census you wanted to do, that is time consuming, which is impossible. So you have to do sampling. So that sampling should be done properly. Now, how qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method apply different sampling techniques? I wanted to show you a few differences. Number one, purpose. Your qualitative research method has purpose to bring something new, new insight, something relevant to you. You wanted to bring something new. If you have to study up to that limit where something new is coming up, it means how much mean whether that answer is sufficient, whether those feelings or ideas are sufficient or not, or whether those responses or ideas are saturated or not. Now you started doing interviews, focus group. Now new thing doesn't come. After 5, 10 interviews, everybody is stating the same. No new things are coming. No new code is emerging. No new, concept or new theory is coming. New knowledge is not coming. I mean, that is saturated. You don't need to do more than that. If you do more than that, then just you will increase the number, but the content or the relevance or the depth will not increase. So qualitative depend upon saturation and sufficiency. How much information you are getting, whether that is sufficient or not, whether the answer are now repeating or not, or any new theme is emerging or not. So that depend upon, that is all, or that always matters for qualitative. So you would apply purposive sampling. You ask question, you meet people, you interview people according to your purpose. If you have to study on gender violence or domestic violence, you have to reach those people who are violated, who are discriminated. If you wanted to observe certain social phenomena, you have to go and reach the people who are affected by that social phenomena. If you have to check people on forest conservation, you have to go and meet those forest manager. You can't go and meet anybody to ask about forest management. You have to reach to those people who are doing forest management to get idea of forest management. If you have to see impact on wildlife, you have to go and see who are impacted by those human wildlife conflict, who are the real people suffering from those wildlife, who are conserving those wildlife. You have to reach those particular person. So it depends upon your purpose. And in that case, in mostly you might also use snowball sampling. You identify one person, and with the help of that person, you get the name of other people. In that case, snowball also can be used. In qualitative, the depth of information, the quality of information depend upon how much rapport you could build, how much trust you could develop, how much real life you could try to generate, how much time you spend on the field. It depends upon that in qualitative. You can observe the biases, surprises, all those things if you study in that area for a long time. And your question will be semi-structured. Semi-structured question, open-ended question should be there. There shouldn't be limited answer to those because you wanted to develop new thing. Mean you are not aware of what are the things coming up. That's why it's new. You are trying to identify something. And of course, quality check is important in qualitative. Those terms are trustworthiness. Trustworthiness is really important. In quantitative, validity and reliability is important. However, in quantitative reliability, validity. However, qualitative, we say trustworthiness. That reliability and validity in qualitative or are trustworthiness. And in qualitative, people's gesture also matters a lot. How they are responding, whether they are happy telling the answer, whether they are crying while telling that answer, those gestures are always important. You have to study those. Otherwise, everything can be done quantitatively. You wanted to see how people are feeling, how people tell those responses, whether they are stopping while telling, whether tears are coming down or not, whether they are hesitant to tell that answer or not. All those things are matter. Gesture really matter in qualitative beside trustworthiness. And of course, wherever possible, it is always necessary to record. Otherwise, what is the proof of you have done qualitative? Quantitative, you have a number. You can say, I sent survey to this many people gave the response. However, in qualitative, your recording, your transcript, your people saying or quotations, they are always matters. And location, where you conduct, what type of location you are conducting interview, or is it open area, closed area? Because people do not want to share everything in open area. They wanted to do meeting in a or interview or a focus group in a closed setting where there is no external influence. So location, time, what time of the year you are conducting. Suppose you are going to conduct in their busy season or off season. Never try to go in the busy season because people will be irresponsive because they have other priorities than your research in that season. So off season is always favorable. So time, all those things matter. However, in quantitative, you wanted to generalize, so you always discuss on representative. Your data should be, your sample should be representative, means it should be coming from some random sample. You are giving equal chance to select every people. So randomness really matters. Probability sampling really matters in quantitative because you wanted to generalize. So representative is important in quantitative. However, what is important in qualitative? Relevance. New insight is coming or not, that is important in qualitative. Quantitative, of course, it will be large, many thousands also, many hundreds. In qualitative, it might be 15, 10. If you have only 5 people suffering from that problem, you have only 5 samples. You don't have more than 5 people, then what will you do? You can only test with the 5 people. Take in-depth response from the 5 people. So it depends upon number. So qualitative less, quantitative more. And in quantitative, if you are applying quantitative, always be careful, apply sample size formula, power calculation formula. They are all available in internet free of cost. So you have to use sample size or power calculation formula for quantitative. I always suggest researcher to apply probability sampling as possible in quantitative. Yes, there are chances where every time probability is not possible. You have to go with the non-probability sampling. Wherever possible, I will always suggest you to apply some random sampling, probability sampling. Those random sampling can be simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, or systematic random sampling. But if your data, if your population is not already defined, you don't have the list. If you don't have the list, you can't do the probability sampling. In that case, you have to go with non-probability. It might be convenience sampling, purposive sampling, quota sampling, or any other type of sampling you have to use. However, your quantitative should be able to tell the importance. And as I mentioned, in qualitative, projective techniques are always important. Projective techniques mean what people wanted to project. For example, if you have to study, food related habit, you have to be exposed or you have to make such a foodie environment so that people will be able to share their food habit, food craving, all those things. If you have to study the conservation related aspect, forest conservation, you have to make the environment such a way that everybody is thinking about the trees, forest, greenery everywhere. In that case, what will come? Feelings toward the forest will come. If you have to study about the wildlife, you wanted to make that area or those people exposed into some sort of wildlife, or you have to bring the scenario of all people immersed into the wildlife scenario, either conflict, conservation. So reflective, projective techniques or projective things are always important. For example, if you have to study wildlife, you also have to give your feeling that you are some sort of expert of wildlife, so that you will be able to relate those feelings. Those people will be also able to relate your questions and answers. Forestry, you have to connect with the forest. You should be able to. If you are connecting data with tourism, you should be some expert of tourism so that you could connect with those tourism guys. Or parks and recreation, you should be have some knowledge. That's why if you are doing qualitative, you should have that in-depth information on that topic. Qualitative, if you are trying to collect data, in qualitative, you should have some information. Otherwise, people will be confused what to answer. So you should be clear before doing any type of qualitative. However, quantitative can be done by any person. You can send any array to do quantitative because just they need to fill the question. Just you give them survey, they will fill and give you. No expertise is necessary. Just they have to fill and give you. However, in qualitative, some sort of expertise need to be shown. Otherwise, whatever you need to collect, you will not collect that data. Quantitative, just they have to tick mark. You don't need any expert to do that. Anybody can do quantitative, collect quantitative data. Anybody can do analysis of quantitative because software can do anything. However, qualitative needs some expertise to do collect data, analyze data, and also prepare report. For quantitative, there is a format, there is a way to collect data, there is a way to analyze data, there is a software, and there is a way how to present the report as well. So quantitative, many researchers, they find it easier than qualitative. Because qualitative, you need to be immersed in that. So you need to, but in the case of quality check, validity, reliability are always important in quantitative. And your question are structured question, close-ended question. And that survey could be done online, in person, or mailed. However, qualitative things are done in certain location. You record. If people are not willing to record, then you are not allowed to record. You need to take consent. Before recording, you need to take consent. However, if people are willing to record, then record it. In many cases, in some cases, they might not be willing to record. In that case, just take notes. You are not supposed to record. If they allow you to record, I will always suggest to record, because without recording, qualitative is not trusted by researcher. You need to show quotes. You need to show excerpts from, you need to show what people are saying exactly. So those things are important in research. And for quantitative, there are different research sampling methods. G-Power is free software to do quantitative data sampling. You can use that online calculator formula. So there are different ways to do quantitative research sampling. G-Power, this is the, Google, if you could type in Google sample size calculator, this things will come up. And what that depend upon, I will discuss it later. Okay, so this is G-Power. Many people use G-Power. For simple statistic, people use G-Power. They can use those sample size calculator. But if you are using quantitative complex model, like structural equation modeling or mediation, moderated mediation or mediated moderation, in that case, you might need to go with more complex sample size calculator. Like if you are using structural equation modeling, there is the same power. to calculate the sample size. Similarly, if you are using moderated mediation, there are other techniques, even G power could conduct, or some sort of simulation technique could be used. Simulated technique could be used for power calculation and sample size calculation. And the important thing is, there are many rule of thumb technique. It means some people say 10 times the variable, 10 times the items, 20 times the item, 50 times. So follow some literature. There are rule of thumb technique. Some people, they do not go to the quantitative formulas. They go with the rule of thumb, what other researchers are telling and what their professor are telling. So follow your supervisor or professor. So follow some rule of thumb technique. How many numbers they say, how many times they say. And I always suggest to follow high quality journal in your topic area, or a premier journal, top journal in your paper, in your subject area, then that would be good. Follow some literature. However, in quantitative, there is a formula. However, in qualitative, what matters for the sample size? Sufficiency of information, or one is sufficiency, how much sufficient your information is. Another is what? Another is saturation. It means whether now your data is saturated or not. Now, do you get new insight or not? If new insight is not coming, you don't need to do more interviews. You don't need to waste time. So saturation and sufficiency is important. Yes, to calculate statistical power in quantitative, now I'm talking about quantitative here, effect size is important. You always need to consider your effect size, how much effect size you want. Why? How much sample size you want for your statistical power? Your sample size is important. Your alpha level of significance, your confidence limit or level of significance, how much alpha you want, 0.05, 0.01, that is important. And your alpha and beta value, it might be type 1 error, type 2 error, how much you want on those values. If you want power of 0.80, then beta is equals to 0.2. It means 1 minus beta is always equal to the power. So if you want 0.80 power, you wanted to use beta value of 0.20. However, alpha can be how much significance you want. 0.05 level of significance, 0.01, or how much significance you want. So this 4 thing will affect your statistical power. Yes, statistical significance is always important. If you have to deal with the quantitative, significance is always important. What does 95% significance mean? It means 95% time you hold true. Or 95% time your observation is true. That is 95% significance, or how much, or you can say it 0.05% level of significance, or 95% time if you are true, mean that is 0.05% significant. If your answer is 99% time true, means that is 0.01 significance level. And what is 0.001 significance level? It means 99.9% you are true. That is your level of significance. So level of significance, how much you want. If you increase your level of significance, or if you come from 95 to 90, your sample size will reduce a lot. It means instead of your answer will be trustable to 95%, if you prefer 90%, then you don't need to calculate or take more sample. So level of significance is always important. How much level of significance, how much truth you want to bring in your finding. That is the truth you wanted to bring. And statistical significance and sample size, it always varies upon the sample size. How much sample size you have, statistical significance differs, or sample size depend upon statistical significance you want. And smaller the sample, the larger the coefficient has to be in order to obtain statistical significance. Sample size is smaller means you need to have higher power, higher sampling significance or statistical significance. If you have large sample, of course, the coefficient will be higher. And in that case, level of significance will be less. So larger the sample, the better is the answer. But always consider too high, or if you take too many samples, sometimes there might be chances of type 1 and type 2 error as well. So you have to be mindful of selecting sample. Yes, always suggested to have a higher sample size than a lower sample size. Yes, these are effect size. What are the different type of, yeah, number one, I said for sampling, significance is important, either 99%, 95%, 90%, or 99.9%. How much significance you want. Number second, I will tell you effect size, how much effect size you want. You might measure Cohen's d effect size. You might measure Pearson correlation effect size. You might measure R square, or you might measure omega square according to different type of test. For t test, independent sample t test, you can use Cohen's d. For correlation analysis, your correlation coefficient is your effect size. For multiple regression, R square is your effect size. For ANOVA, omega square. So this is about different type of effect size. Cohen's d, less than 0.2 mean that is weak, modest, or how much modest, how much strong. In case of correlation, how much value we want. So all those, and in case of a partial eta square, how much effect size you want. All those will affect your sample size. Now, how to enhance your statistical power? Many people suggest use as large sample as possible. Better to have a large sample than a small sample size. But it depends upon your time. We already discussed it depends on your time, money, resources you have. So try to have a large sample. Try to have a larger effect size. Larger effect size means your answer will be more effective. Level of significance, how much you want level of significance. It's better to have 99.9%, but it's not easy to bring 99.9% significant. So at least many researchers, they do up to 95% level of significance, or 0.05 level of significance, or 95% like confidence. 95% confidence limit means 0.05% error of significance. So how many tail tests you want, what type of sample you have, homogeneous, heterogeneous, all those things matters. Homogeneous sample means sample size might be less. How much reliability you want in that result that also affect. Or it also depend upon what type of test you are using, parametric or non-parametric. What matters in parametric, non-parametric? Whether normality, homogeneity, independence, all those things are following in your data or not. So that will also affect your parametric and non-parametric test. Now, how to, in social sciences, if you have to collect data and if you have to increase your response rate, response rate is really important, because you might send your survey to many people and the response rate might be less, and only very few people can respond. How to increase your response rate? These are some important. Seriousness. You should be serious. You should explain people about the seriousness of your study, importance of your study. You have to personalize your email. If you are sending to some people, send it to those people who will personalize that. That will be important for them. So try to bring some sort of importance and seriousness. Of course, how much control you could bring, how much time, patience you have. It all depends upon patience. How much patience you could bring, and how long will be your text, how short should be your text. All those things also matters, because if you have a long text, who will read your email? If you have a short and attractive text, everybody will read your email. Once they read, they might respond. Who knows? If they don't read, they will never respond. So it depends upon how much patience you have. It depends upon how much control you have. It depends upon how much seriously you are bringing that issue. So all those things. So response rate is always important in social science, especially in quantitative. So duration, how much time? Of course, if you take a long range of time, long duration of time, response might be high. Privacy, yes, privacy is always important in qualitative or in quantitative as. If you tell people that this response will be private, I will be storing in certain part, I will be destroying after you tell it. Otherwise, people will be hesitant to respond in qualitative. So privacy is really important. Consent is really important. technical pre-test, reward, and sometimes reward also matters in quantitative. If you have some gift card, some people they might be interested due to your gift card. So reward are always important in surveys or in qualitative as well. For 1 hour, if you pay some money, they might be interested. Instead of working, they can get better money here in 1 hour. So people always think of the time. So reward is always important. Now I wanted to discuss this snowball sampling. Snowball sampling is very powerful technique in qualitative. What is snowball technique? You identify one person purposively. First, you identify one person, and then with the help of that one person, you will get the name and list of other people. So that is snowball sampling. With the help of one person, you identify many person with that response. So once you finish your interview, at the end, you should never forget to ask, do you know other people who could help me in this research? Of course, they will give you few names. One person can give you or might give you three names. Those three people might give you 3 into 3 names. Those 3 into 3 might give you another 3 into. In that way, your people who respond will increase. This is the type of snowball sampling. I mean, one, it's like a snowball. It's like a branching. One gives three gives nine, like that, because sampling is important. Snowball sampling is important. Now I wanted to touch base on, I have less time on mixed method because this is important. I always prioritize mixed method in forestry and wildlife science if you are conducting social science study. Because you wanted to generalize as well as you wanted to find out why that phenomena is occurring. So this is important. And I know there are, those courses are usually not offered. I have been teaching mixed method from previous 5 years. Many and very limited people wanted to study mixed method because you are mixing two things. It's not easy. It's a complex process. However, in forestry and wildlife or environment, if you have to study certain phenomena or test, you also wanted to identify what is the reason behind that, what is the cause behind that. In that case, what is important? Mixed method is important. So I wanted to touch base. This is convergent design. What is that design? Mixed method is convergent design. Mean you do quantitative and qualitative together, and you merge and integrate the answer together. It means qual and quant are done together, and you merge the answer. In that case, the sampling should be, many researchers they say equal number of qualitative and quantitative samples so that you could merge. But many cases that might not be possible because how many quantitative you do, that many qualitative might not be possible in reality, practicality. But what the theory said? But the theory said do as many qualitative as quantitative in conversion. However, in reality, that many people will not give you qualitative answer. That many people will not be able to be ready for interview and focus group as many quantitative you did. So, but the theoretically number of samples should be same for qual and quant. However, in practicality, that is not possible. So you should be able to answer what sample size in convergent. If possible, equal sample size. However, it's not possible every time. Now, explanatory design. As I tell you, explanatory means first you do quantitative, you do survey, you test your result. Now, why that result is coming? Now you wanted to explore more on that. Your survey result is there. Now you want to find out reason behind that. So you do interview FGD after that quantitative. So that is a explanatory. In that case, first quantitative has last sample. Of course, in quantitative, you follow the all quantitative principle. Your sample size formula, your power calculation. You do the sampling as you did in quantitative. Now, from that sample, before completion of sample, you will ask, are you ready to do follow-up interviews? At the end, you can ask those people who are ready to interview with them after your result come. Analyze the result and then do a follow-up interview. Why that is happening? Why this is happening? Why this test is significant? You wanted to answer that in detail. So you do qualitative after the quantitative. So the sample size would be high in the beginning, quantitative, but you will take the same population but less, few people out of those in the explanatory design. It's in the second step, it's purposive. Who wanted to respond you, or who need to respond you? It depends upon that. So, exploratory mean you do few qualitative, because you do qualitative first. You explore something. You find your items. You find your questionnaire, and now I design your questionnaire. Now you have to test. Now with those 5-10 people, you can't test. So in the second stage, those quantitative sample can be different people. It might be, yes, those 5 people can also be there, but you try to have more people, mean the number will be high. In the second phase of quantitative, you try to take response from many people as possible. However, in explanatory, your size is greater in the beginning. In the second phase, from the same size you are funneling and doing, small sample size from the bigger population, same bigger population, same respondent, few only. That is for explanatory. However, in explanatory, small sample, now you test with bigger people. You're opening your funnel now. Previously you were closing, now opening. Your size will be, number will be high. In this case, second phase quantitative. However, in both qualitative and quantitative phases, you have to follow the norms of qual and quant. You have to, if you don't follow, then your method is not mixed method. And another is embedded, where qual and